Hello, everyone. Today is November 24th. This is a biweekly meeting of the enhancement subproject meeting of the enhancement subproject of SIG Architecture. This is a meeting that is recorded and will be available on the internet, so please be mindful of what you say and do. Please be sure to adhere to the Kubernetes Code of Conduct, and in general, just be awesome people. So, Laura, you want to take it away with the agenda?
Yeah, sure. We have some newcomers and fairly newcomers. So one thing is we always put our name under the attendees list. And then if you would like to introduce yourselves, please go ahead. Uh-oh, we can't hear you. You're still mute. Uh-oh.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
I was just asking you, Laurie, if I'm still considered a newcomer or not.
I think this is your first meeting, right? So
yeah, this is my first meeting. So hi, everyone. My name is Sushmita, and I have been a part of enhancement group for like some time now. And I work as a product manager at a startup in California. So, and I'm looking forward to contribute more in the enhancement group.
And Aiden, I think you introduced yourself last time.
I did, yeah.
Yeah. Hippie Hacker, have you been to an enhancements meeting yet?
I don't think I've been to an enhancements meeting. Pardon, no video. It's 5:30 a.m. and I'm still slowly getting up.
Wow, this is commitment.
I'm stepping in because I'm part of the Conformance subproject, another subproject of architecture. And we had a really fun release for 120 leading up to some GA promotions for some new features. And it was toward the end of the release cycle, so it was a bit touch and go. And so I wanted to make sure that that I learned enough about where all of the KEPs are and how to engage in that process for the ones that are currently in flow, so that there's plenty of lead time for the people that want to do a release of their feature within a release cycle, so that it's not done at the end during our test freeze. Because we have it, anyway, sorry, I'm digging into agenda stuff, but that's why I'm here.
Oh, well, you're the first item on the agenda, so you might as well.
Pardon me, I can't see the agenda either.
Oh,
I'm on my phone, so I may have to just have some help from people who can see it.
Yeah, no worries. So I just pulled it up here and shared the screen so we can all look at it. Yeah, your item, add conformance tests to KEP requirements, PR. I'm going to pull up the pull request here if you want to. Are you still
there? I am still here.
Okay, great.
I zoom in. No, I can zoom in. I think it's probably needs, this PR probably needs a bit more. We can merge it and iterate, but even if we make a change here, it's going to be years before a KEP that goes through this process is going to have my small change in it. The current KEP that merged GA for this release was started in 2016.
Wow.
If I remember right. So this, while this is lovely, I think if we look at the changes, some things that are probably missing is time frames, because we should encourage them to have all of their tests written probably from the when they're in beta, so that the promotion PR can occur with those tests in place. Originally, SIG Architecture was looking for a PR blocking job, so that we would not allow anyone to create new GA APIs that did not have conformance tests. But there's a funny catch-22 there, because in order for a test, just a normal EDE test, to be promoted to a conformance test, it has to have been soaking for 2 weeks. And normally those tests are hitting GA endpoints. I think we've only had one promotion where all of that occurred at once, and it was like orchestrated by Liggett. And the end result was us realizing it's probably too difficult to try to have a process in place for the test to be soaking as beta tests, and then have the promotion include updating the test and updating the endpoints all inside a single PR. So instead of having a PR blocking job, we went for, currently it's not even release informing, but we have an API snoop job that runs periodically. I think it's every 3 hours. And that 3-hour job is part of the part of this PR, I believe. If not, I definitely need to update it to include it. The idea being that the SIG release, the release team, would get informed that a new promotion occurred and block the release until that is promoted, with all the tests are included as well. What happened in this last release was that promotion occurred with less than 2 weeks to go in the release, and we made an exception from the conformance side, and I think there was also an exception made from the SIG release side. But now that it's merged, we're having people on the conformance SIG architecture side saying that the tests aren't well written. And so this really, we'll deal with this part and try to make those tests better. But in the future, we would love to have more of the timing laid out for those people wanting to go through, like inside of the KEPs, and you're going to need to plan for this. That's where I'm sitting right now.
So I totally agree with you, and I'm the one that granted the release exception for those things to get added. I think that I took a look at your PR, and I definitely think we can add more to it. We can use this as a starting point, but I think it would be really good to add a section maybe that makes it really explicit. Something maybe for the table, lists out the end-to-end tests that are going to be added as part of the test plan, and then identify the ones that will be promoted to conformance. That way we have that extra documentation there, and it'll be easier for the release team to go through and verify that those are in place before we accept it into the release. And as to like adding things back, we actually got pretty good adherence to updating KEPs this time. Kirsten was the enhancements lead for 120, and she worked with a lot of authors to get them to update to the new format, because there were a lot of things, like you mentioned,
beautiful,
back in from 116 or way before 116 that hadn't updated their KEPs beforehand. So as part of the enhancements collection process this time around, they did a pretty good scan of the things that had opted into the release and got them to update the format correctly. So I think if we add this to the KEP YAML and to the README, like maybe a section, wherever it's going to land, but we add in those sections, I think we'll get pretty good adherence from people marking these things down and filling the sections out. And definitely, like during the 121 timeframe, we can have the release team work with you to.
Well, that would be lovely. In this, we're talking about adding a section for the EDE test. I think even more explicitly would be each of the operations.
Yeah.
Because we can have an API Snoop link that has the exact operation, and it will have a setting to say either what the tests hitting it are, or if there is a test in place, so we know which one to promote, so that we're well prepared to know exactly what's going to happen when we submit that promotion request for those EDE tests.
Yeah, so one thing I would say is that because we're adding a new requirement to the KEP, just in general, I think end-to-end tests are mysterious for people. If we're going to add this as a requirement to KEPs, it needs to be incredibly thorough before saying that it's a requirement for everyone. Because like with that PR, I reviewed the PR just now. With that PR, like I would need a lot more detail to get where I'm going and be successful submitting a KEP. So just a note that this is maybe new territory for a lot of people, especially people who are going to be reviewing the KEPs from the release team side, needing to have the appropriate context to know if something looks off, right? As well as how we start to work those maybe those promotion tests into master informing, right? So that the release team has visibility on that too.
I can go ahead and update that later today with more information. There are documents for writing good tests from SIG architecture, and there's also the process for promotion, which I'm not sure what's in the PR right now, but those should definitely be there in addition to the link to the blocking PR. Sorry, the release informing job that we hope someplace to be a release blocking job.
And
Should the
where would someone get more information? Because you've mentioned API Snoop a few times. Where would someone get more information? Like it's not currently in that document that is linked in the PR.
We have I think it's getting examples because normally we link into API Snoop for a specific release, so we can see new promotions or new GA APIs that don't have tests, because that's the primary use case for it. And I don't know that something exists currently for those links. The primary binary indicator is the job, and I think that's fairly new. Definitely needs to be added and created.
Yeah, I would say even just to start, if it's a link in that document to API Snoop, I think for a lot of people who are not close to, like I have some coworkers that are starting to poke around the conformance stuff. Like I think for a lot of people who are not familiar with that kind of sub-project, and like being able to point them to API Snoop and show them the functionality and like show them how they might become conformant if they start to look at these things, would be useful, especially if if you're say you're a KEP who has been open since 2016 or something like that, right? And you're coming back to kind of backfill a bunch of information, giving them something like API Snoop to kind of like poke at and go, oh, well, I can see exactly which points are not on the board, would be super useful.
We found the most common use is within the KEP to point to the entire area. I think it's the API group that is getting promoted, so they can see the existing endpoints, which ones are tested and which ones are conformance tested. The other tooling that we've not seen a lot of linking to, but that our team will use, will be to actually bring up the SnoopDB within a cluster that has audit logging turned on, so that we can verify which endpoints are getting hit. We verify that by bringing in existing E2E jobs where the tests are run and downloading their audit logs and injecting them into the DB.
Okay, that makes sense.
Jeremy, would this be like a longer term feature for the receipts kind of bot? Would that be something that they would have to have conformance tests in place, and on passing they would be, included?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can add more validation in down the road, but I think we need to have a good definition of what these things are, like to Stephen's point, and have good examples so we can have people add these things in first and figure out what it looks like to document these things before we think about adding any validation for it. I mean, I think we're still going to end up with a lot of manual review of these things as we go forward with the receipts process for a while. And I think just having the understanding of what these look like, what satisfies the conformance need from the conformance working group, like what in the KEP will satisfy that, help with the review process. I think that's what we should focus on first.
Okay.
Is there do we have a list of KEPs that are nearing completion, so that maybe I could work with a few of those to turn them into glowing examples?
We don't really keep a catalog like that. I think the best thing to do would be to look at the ones that are promoting to beta this time around.
Yeah.
Okay.
As a first pass, and then as we start to putting SIG release hat on and release lead hat, as we start the enhancements collection for 121, that'll identify the things that are going to promote to GA.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to early on help identify which ones are lacking in that sense. And definitely, like, that's slightly out of the scope of enhancements as a thing. It's more like an execution release thing. But you also have like several people from SIG release here, so we can help coordinate that for 121. But definitely the things that are promoting to beta in 120, I think would be a good set, like to start working on, to make sure that going forward they have those things. There's obviously things that are in beta now that try to promote to stable in 121.
Yeah, but I would definitely say the ones that are already moving, right?
As a quick demonstration of that, if the screen sharing person would like to go to API Snoop, we actually have a list of APIs that have gone through that transition per release.
I'd need a link.
It's apisnoop.cncf.io.
Oh, okay.
I thought everyone would know. Sorry. It's world famous in New Zealand.
Yeah, I got a lot of things to keep track of. As we all do. They're just different. All right. Ooh.
It's all good.
Wow.
If you scroll down past the graph, there's a list, and that list is the new things. And when we see level stable, that's where we kind of an indicator, but past stable will be the beta and other things. So if from what I hear, I should look at the APIs down there in the beta list. Flow control API server sounds like a good bet. No tests, but they'll obviously want to promote. And then if you click on, let's say, flow control API server in the category area, that would give us a zoomed in area for just flow API control to say that they have 21 endpoints and only one conformance test. So this would be a great link for their CAP.
So just kind of as an indicator, like, what is bad? Like, is this bad?
No, it's not bad in that we don't have requirements for alpha or beta to have tests. But for them to promote to GA, they should have not only your tests written, but ensure that they meet the definition of conformance. So we have the conformance guidelines that say what's required. That way, when they promote, once it's stable, they can go ahead and wait 2 weeks, because we'll have to look at the test grid for those tests and ensure that they're non-flaky. So there's two big things. One, make sure that they're actual conformance tests and do all of the requirements there. Two, that they've been hitting that GA endpoint for 2 weeks. And that's the scheduling that we need to make sure that those are GA before the release is out.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that's, I'm gonna air quote, that's easy to do. When you're, I think when people are buying into the release cycle, it's like 2 weeks is a big chunk of time, right? Like, or rather, it's a small sliver of the entire release cycle. So I think it's entirely possible to make that happen. It's just people have to be aware of the enhancements collection periods and when development should be going on for the release. So I don't think that part will be hard. I think it'll be making sure it happens in KEPs too.
What other quick link that might be useful specifically for SIG release and for the KEP is the release itself. So if you go, I can't quite see the full screen on my phone, but if you go up to the top of the page, there'll be a link to conformance something that's I have to rotate my phone.
Progress.
Yeah, click on the progress.
Yeah.
And then there's two things. There's list of ineligible endpoints, but if you look at the time of the release, for this release here, we've avoided any new endpoints without test, the orange that we don't want. Rotate the phone again. I can't quite see with the, if you click on the I guess it's turquoise. The turquoise area are the successful promotions, which is primarily what we're focused on here. So we could link to this to see, this is the untested.
That was turquoise for me, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
I have maybe blue is previously tested.
It's the top color under type.
Oh, it's grayish?
Yeah.
Oh,
no.
new endpoints
no,
promoted with tests.
There we go. Yes, that's the one.
Oh, yeah, I guess it must have clicked on red by.
This is where we want to keep this is where we would like it to be. And what happens when we don't have test is under promoted without test. So if you click on promoted without test, it'll add that to the filter. There's none in this release yet because that's part of the release cycle. If we want to see what's the indicator that's really easy to link to, if you uncheck promote with test, this link, if we go to the URL or we go back, we can change the release and we can probably just go back.
I don't know why it's, I guess I have to go here.
Yeah, and then just choose one of the orange areas.
Oh, right.
Any of those orange areas are the release where we had promotions, but it was promoted in that release, but it wasn't tested so much later. These are the ones we're trying to avoid and make sure that the promotion release is the tested release. And we can see that this particular piece of debt introduced in 114 was finally cleared in this last, in the 120.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about links and what to put. So I just wanted to kind of go through this, and I'll go through and update the PR to include these as examples.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are probably more useful for the release team, and some of them are more useful for the particular API that's trying to promote. But there'll be an overlap of those uses.
All right, so to wrap up, we have an action item for Hippie Hacker to keep working on the existing PR to make it clearer for folks who are not familiar with conformance tests, what exactly they're looking at, and then add the link to this API snoop as a way to get some metrics here and details about what's been tested and not. And then what about this looking at the keps promoting to beta in 120? Are we going, the idea is to also work with some of those to identify what's lacking in the testing sense and then make them ready for 121. Is that the plan?
Yes.
Cool. Just want to make sure I got everything accurate. All right, anything else on this? If not, we can move to receipts.
Sure.
Thank
So,
you.
Hang on. Do we want to hit Sushmita's check-in first?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. Just want to make sure they get time because I know
Yeah.
Aiden had to drop just now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, for sure.
Sure. So basically, Aiden and I, we worked on the bug template, and we wanted to look into the glossary part of it, but we had some questions regarding glossary. So I wanted to understand what exactly are we like, what is the glossary for, or like, yeah, I just want to understand like, where do we have to, why do we need it, and like, where do we create it? If you could give me like a background for that, I probably can be able to understand that better.
So I think, you know, part of it is like, maybe do we need it is a good question to ask, right? The idea is that if there are a set of you know, words that you don't understand for you know, for kind of engaging with this process, where do you go to get them, right? So like, either our documentation is incredibly explicit about laying out everything that is in the process, or, you know, or in addition, you know, we also have a set of you know, quick terms to look up to help people kind of onboard. So that's what the glossary would be for.
So will this be a part of the kept template, or
It should be outside of the template, really, right? It should be kind of like close to where you're entering our domain, right? So maybe on the README, maybe close by to the README. Maybe it's a glossary MD that's in the root.
I would suggest a separate file that would be linked to from the main README.
Yeah, you do like a glossary MD and keep it all in there.
I can look into that. Yeah.
And then people can add to terms as they go and alphabetize it and everything. It'll be quite segmented.
So that was about it. And we worked on the bug template as well.
Oh.
Do you want to bring that up?
Why don't, yeah, I'll stop.
Okay, I can share my screen.
Sharing, I think you can share. Let me know if you can't, and then I can do it for you.
Yeah, I don't have an option to share the screen.
Do you want to drop the link in, and then I'll do so?
I just sent it on the chat.
Yeah. Okay, and then I'll share again. Here we go. Okay.
So I had a look at like some of the other SIGs that have templates, and I had a look at some of the open and closed bugs that were reported, like pull requests that had these information. And I kind of brought together, and I observed that there is nowhere that like some of the bugs have like some of the fields missing. So I thought if we can like make that a mandatory field or an optional field, it could be better. And this is something that Aiden and we came up with. So is there any feedback?
Yeah, so I would say that we primarily don't have bugs. I think that will crop up more as we have as we build more and more tooling. So I would probably drop the environment section. I think a bug for us right now, maybe it's someone that's using the tooling, but more likely it's a piece of feedback for the process more so. So like our bug is more I guess meta. And so it's either going to be kind of like a feature request or a feature request specifically for some piece of tooling or for the kept template, or what might be considered to be a bug for one of those pieces within our area. Sorry, that was rambly. Did that make sense?
No, not at all. I think it makes a lot of sense. So you're basically thinking about bugs in the system instead of bugs in the environment. So
I do like maybe, so I think, probably dropping environment and steps to reproduce. I like most of the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
maybe some guidance on what priority and severity would mean. That could be outside the template, but in the intro text. So trying to come up with those measurements.
And now that you told me that this is mostly like, how do we improve the kept template or like feature enhancement? So do we need the priority and severity would be my question.
So one of our, we were just having this conversation in another meeting. One of the problems that we have with, because I was like, oh, we can just use the labels for these. We kind of can't. So we have labels that indicate priority, right? But the labels are also kind of like spliced in with severity, right? So they're labels like priority, critical, urgent, right? Or important soon, or important long term, right? So it gives you kind of like some angle of priority and also urgency, but they're conflated. So I think explicitly listing out something that we consider to be potentially blocking for the process, right? If we have something that like doesn't work, right? It's something that we rolled out and it straight up doesn't work and people are pissed off, right? They should be able to provide that feedback on on this bug template, right? Kind of like process. It's a process improvement template. I don't, we can play with the naming.
It could be like, I can't move forward because I don't know what to do and where to find instructions. And that would be like urgent because maybe other people would be in the same position. Like they just,
like, that's me too. You
yeah,
me too.
Exactly. And then something that would be long-term might be just the basics are there, but we know that it could be better in some way.
We know it takes a few cycles to clean up or something.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Something like the receipts process, right, is going to be a multi-cycle lift, sort of, right? So seeing someone file, if someone was to file something on receipts right now, right, I would love a way to be able to say what I'm going to deliver for the release cycle. And I don't have a way to do that right now without writing a full-scale cap. Right, and then that's something that are like, oh, this is actionable feedback. This is actionable feedback. Like this is something we can roll into our process. So I think, yeah, having a template for process improvement or what people might perceive to be bugs. Maybe the bug is something that is like poorly explained, or it's a term that they don't understand that needs to be part of the glossary, right? So there's a bit of a dovetail there too.
So here's a question. There are already some of these types of issues that have been filed that we haven't acted on. One example might be, can I file a policy change as an enhancement? So, that might stop somebody because they would be like, I don't know what to do. I have a policy improvement. I don't know where to put it, how to store it. So we could try to work with some of the existing bugs first and see how this template would help. Or,
Yeah.
for example, maybe for that question, it comes from one person, right? Somebody will file an issue like, I don't know what to do. Can I file a policy KEP? Then what you could do is take that issue, use this bug template, and try to get more feedback on it. For example, in chairs and leads, or in whatever SIG might have originated the issue, just to get more input. Just like any product manager would, getting user feedback on the process itself. And there you then have maybe, I don't know, but maybe so. Maybe you would have less discussion on issues, which can take a long time to kind of like, people might leave issue comments, but then nothing really happens on those for significant amounts of time. Maybe through this kind of more face-to-face proactive input gathering, you can reach decisions a lot faster around this process, and then have clearer to-dos from that feedback.
So I think that something that is actually a great, that's a great issue to bring up. Should KEPs, the one about should KEPs be used for policy changes? I think the answer has been maybe. It depends.
Yeah, exactly.
The triage KEP is a great example, right? Where, so one, we don't want to create more friction than we need to for a SIG to deliver some unit of work. If it is not directly in the release cycle, then there is definitely an opportunity to say that maybe this thing doesn't need to be a KEP, right? But at the same time, if it touches a lot of people and it's not well formed, maybe there's an opportunity for it to be a KEP, right? I think the triage KEP was a great example of that, where it's like a process. We're about to drop it on the entire community. Does it work? Like, we need to flesh it out. And having that thoughtful conversation around creating something that can work for multiple people. But we do need to be able to say that, like explicitly say that it should be done. And are we at the point where we can say that? Do we think it's been sufficiently useful to try to enforce? I don't think it has been.
No, I mean, I think this is just like when we're talking about these big policy changes, like take, for example, your effort to see what people would like in terms of release cadence, 3 or 4 per year. You did a ton of outreach on that question. So then your data is pretty diverse. And also you have this huge swath of perspectives on that question. With these kinds of policy KEP questions or not, we hear from some people who are heavily invested in the process already. They leave GitHub issue comments, and then it kind of just stalls out because there's an obvious knowledge that the comments of 5 or 10 people aren't probably enough to act on. So then nothing really happens. And so what I could see this doing is the bug template could be a way to activate user feedback around those policy questions to make them a lot crisper and actionable.
So I guess I would ask what would be the difference between just opening an issue somewhere and making sure the issue is well formed in terms of gathering feedback?
I guess it would be the more proactive. We're going to actually go out and seek your feedback instead of just wait passively for people to find the issue, comment on it, and then it sort of becomes a tragedy of the commons who actually takes up that issue and makes something happen.
So who I'm trying to like key into like responsibility, right? Do we if this issue opens, do we become responsible for carrying someone's policy change. That's what I want to make sure we avoid.
No, I think if we're gonna have if we're gonna own the process and how clear the process is, and that's the understanding I have, then we could facilitate those conversations without owning the result. Like we could be the folks driving a conclusion.
Yeah, because like that, the only thing I don't want is for it to create where we either become a gating function for people to deliver
Yep.
process change,
Yep.
or we become responsible for gathering the feedback required for some process change. I don't think we should be responsible for that.
So maybe we tee up other people. We're like the delegating function. Like, okay, you've voiced this concern. So, would you personally like to do something about this? Would your SIG like to do something about this? Would you like someone else to do something about this issue? Let us know. And then maybe we invite people to come here, but like they leave owning the question. And we're just like providing space for that check-in and clarity. I'm going to own this GitHub issue about policy, and I want to come to the enhancement subproject meeting to just kick around a few ideas, get some context and perspective, and then go off and solve the problem.
Okay. Yeah, I think.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, we don't have a lot of people coming to these meetings, which is kind of interesting because this is incredibly important for the project, this process, because this is where all the magic happens, but we don't have people coming. So this would be a way to get them in the door.
True. I think that, I think part of what we could do is consider I think this is when we have more consistent attendance outside of kind of like the lead framework and the people who have been in and around the release team, is maybe consider what does this look like to be, what would this look like as in office hours, right?
Yeah.
Where, this has come up before, but again, like in the SIG PM before times when there weren't a lot of people showing up to these meetings, I was just kind of like yapping at a camera for an hour. The idea is essentially like you have a KEP, you want to do stuff with your KEP, you don't know how to do that, come bring your KEP, we will help you KEP. We will make your KEPs.
Yeah. I think this could be good actually, because it's like learning how to do KEPs well.
Yeah.
And then we could actually cut these meetings short by half and just talk about the process improvements here.
Yeah, and then it becomes it becomes a infectious almost, right? You teach one, or you teach a few people how to do that, they go do it. And sorry to bring up infection, but
it's okay. It's a topic for 2020. You're on.
like, oh, do you have the KEPs? Did you catch the KEPs? Like, like teaching someone how to kind of structure this properly, it becomes less of a requirement for the release team to understand how to deliver these in the front half of the cycle, or to chase people in the front half of the cycle, and more so maybe it's I don't know, maybe it starts off as a like KEP training session or something with SIG chairs and leads, right? And then it kind of grows into, everyone's got their own kind of understanding of how to deliver it within their SIG. I would love to see, the idea of the SIG PXM rise. Right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
People, you have been incredible to have, leading program management efforts on the release side. And I think that like that model is useful to people, right? And I think, I think what ends up happening is like the most organized engineer ends up being the product manager, right? For the cycle, right? Which means they're handling the KEPs, they're doing reviews, they're doing approvals, they're organizing the bits, they're working the board, they're communicating out, and that's a lot of juggling, right?
It is a lot.
guys
It's
want
a
to
lot of context switching.
yeah, and it can maybe be in a bunch of hands, right? This is an opportunity for contribution on kind of the PXM side, right, where classically there wasn't any.
Right.
But you know this is me
Yeah,
rambling stuff we've talked about.
Yeah, we have. I'm wondering though if this would be actually the good time to activate it for 121. So say for example, and Sushmita, this is far afield from a typical bug template at this point. I just acknowledge that the conversation has morphed into something different, but we have talked all along about trying to get PXMs embedded in SIGs. And to do that, would be partly trying to make yourself obsolete as quickly as possible. So this is essentially like training the chairs and tech leads to do KEP development and prioritization and breakdown work if they don't have that knowledge already. And then either you form a relationship with that SIG and you stick around and work as an embedded member of the team, kind of like what SIG releases had happened with me, or they go and find someone else in the SIG who wants to do that work, who's an engineer as well, but just has more of an interest in product management, and then they go and do it. Because I think based on my conversations with SIG, some folks are not that enthusiastic at this point, or at this moment, in having someone with a product management background come in and actually do product management work. I don't agree with that. I think that that's incredibly useful and in fact quite needed. But there are some just concerns that I think people have developed over time that would have to be chipped away at. So it would be a trust building effort to show up and start working with them and have them realize, that you're not trying to be like an advocate for your employer or something and getting your employer's product priorities met through the SIG, those kinds of concerns.
Yeah, I think definitely part of it is what you just said.
And I mean, that was, yeah.
Yeah, that's but also like making some people do this because like it's fun, right? I'm having fun doing this, right? And it can maybe make open source feel more like work, and not as exciting for that reason. I don't buy it. I don't,
yeah,
like I don't buy it. I think that proof is in the pudding. So if we if it's something that we want to do, we should get a better understanding of like what our metrics for success are and who our potential champions are in various SIGs, right? Like who might even be interested in this, right? And how do we show that it works eventually? And if we can do that, and I think we already have, a list of potential volunteers for some of this, right? So I think the what would frighten me about this is just in terms of like being a new contributor, sending someone to go lead something immediately.
Oh yeah,
scary. So like providing a framework for success for this as well. Like here are the things that you want to try to drag out of the SIG or want to improve, or like here, like when you have this conversation, that you're moving to this level, yada yada yada. Like providing a framework for success, especially for new contributors stepping into this, because like PXM stuff has not been successful in the community, and I would hate to like send a new contributor off to go do something and just like not have a good time. So we need to make sure we make that a positive experience for everyone.
Yeah, so we have a bit of a model. It's just been a matter of timing with KubeCon and people being on vacations, but we have a PM who's been interested in helping SIG cloud provider to serve this function. Basically, what can she do from a product manager perspective to help them self-organize so that the two chairs don't have to do all of the heavy lifting. So I think actually the meeting, I think tomorrow is the meeting and we're going to have everybody on vacation. So it might be postponed again, but at some point there will be a meeting and we will go and we will sort this out. But I imagine that there's probably other SIGs that would be welcoming to this kind of help. So that's actually Nikita S. She's in the enhancements channel.
Yeah.
So Sushmita, if you ping in there, like we could get that conversation going, like getting some momentum around building up this kind of enhancements, office hours, and culture in the SIGs. And we could try to pilot something for 121, where each person who's a product manager has a specific SIG they work with or like a specific task. So say, for example, you would like to just host the office hours or be one of the hosts of that, then you would sign up for that. And then people would come, bring their KEPs, and you would help them make their KEPs better. We would have to communicate the messaging. So we would want folks to be aware that we would be doing these new activities in 121 so that they actually show up. But I see a couple of angles here on how we can drive greater PXM involvement. And then that basically makes your bug template into a project.
I think you should also look at enhancements that were deferred or got rejected, like this release. Maybe like reaching out to those people will get more engagement.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. Yeah, like clearly, there's something that they're not getting, whether it's time, whether it's they missed a step. So, that could actually be a great starting point for getting feedback.
Yeah, so I would say, like, selfishly, this is the kind of feedback that I want. As we start to make considerations around changing the release cadence, one of the questions that we've been asked is like, well, what slips, like what lands, like how do we know, like how do we know that like a change in the process can or change in the cadence may or may not affect delivery. I think that surprisingly we had a lot more enhancements land in this release than this is probably one of the heaviest end of year releases I've ever seen.
It's the heaviest release period
overall.
Yeah,
in quite a while.
And like at this point I've done a few of them, so like this is we usually like will land somewhere in the 30, somewhere in the 30 to 40 range will be proposed, and maybe 30% of that will drop by the end of the release, right? So that's that. We had we had a commit level, and then we had a delivery level of 60 something percent, right? So I think it'd be interesting to poke around kind of like the in between bits where like things were proposed and where they didn't. So checking out that deferred stuff, I think that's a great idea. I know Josh Burkus has an intern that a data intern that they were looking to collect information around this. So I would maybe pull Josh into this conversation too, because I think he's looking to either help build the case for a different release cadence or essentially provide
he's trying to quantify
for or against, right?
Yep.
So that's a good angle to play.
So what I can do here is I can connect everybody and then just sort of like help you all stay aligned on like who is doing what, so that we don't have folks doing the same thing twice.
Yeah.
We'll create a Slack thread. I would put it in, I guess we should put it in enhancements. So I'll ping Josh to move the chat over there, and then we can use that Slack thread as our alignment.
Rallying point. Yeah. I'm down.
Cool. We didn't do anything on receipts, so.
Jeremy, do you want to do a quick what do we?
Yeah.
What do we have?
1 minute update.
Speed round?
Navarun and I are pairing on a HackMD document. It'll be our just our drop in for the PR. I think at this point it's better to focus on getting that nailed down, and then we can work on manually executing that stuff during 121, and then work on any supporting tooling we need to do during 121, and maybe identify any areas the process sucks that we need to change before we codify anything with some tooling. do have a branch open if people want to take a look at it. I'll drop it into the enhancements channel.
Yeah, please
Just
do.
kind of like the work in progress stuff.
Yes.
So we're fleshing out the user stories. We want to make like the KEP have like pretty verbose user stories, just so it's really clear to people like what the workflow is going to look like. And that kind of turns into documentation. Like as the KEP author, I'm going to do these 5 things or these 4 things and how the process will fit into that. So we haven't had a lot of time last week or the week before, just given like release cadence stuff and KubeCon and other stuff. But my week is pretty free this week. So yep.
Have you used Miro? The tagging tool?
I have used Miro.
Maybe that's a useful tool for you. I just throw it out there.
Miro's pretty dope.
Yeah.
So we're fleshing those things out, and then just kind of the surrounding text. We've removed some things from the KEP template that don't like make sense. Kind of going back to like policy changes. This is largely a policy change that will have some tooling to support it, but like, does it make sense to have a PRR review? Probably not, because it's not really a thing that's going to graduate like that. So we're hopefully going to have that stuff wrapped up this week, or a large chunk of it wrapped up this week, and we'll drop it into the enhancements channel for review. Unless you have any other thoughts on that, Navarun.
Nope. Thanks. Same thoughts on this. Let's ship it through.
So I would say that as we're entering the holiday,
yeah.
I would put it up sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Because like I'm very likely to stare at things during Thanksgiving. And even if you feel it's not meaty or it's not like cooked enough, like I would just toss it up and get, if people want to stare at it, give them an opportunity to.
Yeah. That's the goal. I think.
We're running into
calendars.
Yeah. I mean, same with the release cadence conversation, right? We're running into the next cycle now. We're officially like just about out of time for the year. So yeah. Good team.
Let's get a time machine. Let's go back.
All right. Well, we are over. But it was
gotta jump to another meeting,
especially around the office hour stuff. So looking forward to hearing more, and thank you all for joining. We will see you at the next one.
All right.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.